You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome. I'm Eben Jansen. This show is broadcast live between 9 and 10 a.m. from Johannesburg in South Africa, Monday to Friday. We also have highlights rebroadcast at 2 o'clock every afternoon in the week, and then the following morning at 5 a.m. as well. And now we're also streaming live on YouTube every day, so you can watch Newsroom live all around the world or catch a recording at your leisure later in the day. Today, we talk to the convener of selectors for South African cricket about the much-anticipated series against Australia that kicks off next month. The standoff in the platinum mines in South Africa continues, and we look at the Mars 1 mission. Will you go to Mars knowing you will never come back here? I'm not so sure. I kind of like it here. But first, let's go and take a look at the news headlines. Limpopo Premier Stanley Matabata has condemned acts of violence in 3 villages in that province. Community members went on the rampage, burning property and blockading roads earlier this week. It follows the discovery of 3 bodies in the Rilela, Kubyane and Kutama villages. Another strike is looming in the mining sector. This time, trade union NUMSA is planning to serve a 48-hour notice to down tools at Anglo American Platinum. It comes as members of the trade union AMCU reject the employer's latest offer of a 9% salary increase. And Nigeria and Zimbabwe, who were the favourites to play in the final of the African Nations Championship, will now fight it out for the third and fourth place. Tomorrow in Cape Town, they lost out on a place in the final to Libya and Ghana, who themselves insist they remain the underdogs. The Australian cricket side arrived in South Africa for one of the most anticipated series of cricket in years earlier this week. After drubbing the English 5-0 in the recent Ashes series, the men from Down Under have talked up their chances of beating the world #1 Proteas here in South Africa over the next month or two. South Africa go into a major series without their talisman, Jacques Kallis, for the first time in nearly 20 years. They announced their squad for the series on Wednesday. And joining us in our studio in Durban is one of the most stylish batsmen in the history of South African cricket, and now the convener of selectors, Andrew Hudson. Good morning.
Morning, Eben.
Andrew, thank you very much for joining us. Firstly, South Africa, I want to tell you, everyone says we still start as favourites for this series, but this will be a series that separates the men from the boys, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think in many respects, Australia have a resurgent side. I mean, they haven't been too good in the last 2 or 3 years, and seem to be getting their game together. Yet South Africa's had a consistent record in the last 18 months to 2 years, and have dominated the different series that they've played in. So, yeah, it's both teams will be bringing different attributes into the series, but there's no doubt that it's going to be a magnificent test series.
Now, just to look at the squad that you and your panel announced earlier in the week, you've named Wayne Parnell and Ryan McLaren in the group. Does that mean that they automatically compete with each other for the #7 slot, and that Faf du Plessis then automatically moves up the order to replace the irreplaceable Jacques Kallis?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of speculation in terms of who Jacques' replacement should be, and I think it's not entirely fair to say that you know, whoever comes in now is Jacques' replacement. I mean, he was a fantastic cricketer, and gave us the option, because he was a batsman at #4 and a frontline batsman, gave us the option of giving us extra overs when we needed. But yeah, I think we've selected a squad of 15 for the 3 Test match series, and it gives us different options. Even it's not necessarily that we will play an all-rounder at #7. There's a likelihood we could still play 7 batters and maybe look to go in with a seam attack. So there are quite a few different options that we can look at. We'd also like to look at the wicket at Centurion. to see how it plays and whether it's green or bare. So those are considerations that I think will help us with our combinations.
You mentioned the wicket. That was the one thing I was going to ask you. For the Aussies, they come here, they say they've got the best attack in the world. Are we going to see wickets that are maybe a little bit slower? Kingsmead, for instance, have been taking a bit of turn the last season or so.
Yeah, I think perhaps the wickets that suit us are wickets that are true and have a little bit of bounce, but perhaps a little bit of seam movement as well. So historically, South Africa has not been an easy place for batsmen to play in, and our strength has always traditionally been our seam bowling. So I guess good wickets that have got a little bit of seam movement, and I think our batters are probably a little bit more used to playing in conditions where there's a little bit of lateral movement. Australian wickets tend to be very good, very true, and the seam movement is not perhaps as much as in South Africa.
I wanted to talk about the Aussies. They always have a lot to say. They've chirped South Africa even before they arrived. They've been chirping our players. You know all about the kind of sledging that the Aussies bring. Can we expect this series, because it's going to be so closely contested, can we expect that some moments would sort of boil over, like back in the day when Shane Warne almost ran you off the pitch there?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is a tactic, and I think one of the tactics of sledging and what's happening off the field is really to get the team to start to think about other things. And this team under Graham Smith is very good about preparing itself for the Test match series, not always being too concerned about the opposition and what they are doing or what they're talking about. And if you can busy yourself with your own preparation, because there's no doubt that man for man, if South Africa plays to its potential, they should be fine. I mean, there should be no reason that they shouldn't be able to beat the Australians here in South Africa, man for man. But once you start looking at what Australia's doing and start listening to some of the comments and being caught by the sledging and the likes, it takes your mind off your own game in terms of what you need to do. And so that's the discipline that I think Graham brings and the team brings in terms of an experienced unit that's been through a lot of tours together.
Now, Darren Lehman has really made a big difference in a short time in the Australian team. They play an exciting brand of cricket now, and they really have a top-notch bowling attack, spearheaded by a resurgent Mitchell Johnson.
Yeah, and I mean, it's nice to see Mitchell bowling well, and I mean, he's had his problems historically in the past, but yeah, I mean, I guess every Test team goes through the ups and downs, and you have periods where you play really well and periods where things aren't going so well. But they seem to have their confidence up. Their tails are up. They've got some great cricketers. I think we're not going to underestimate them at all. I think that's something where we mustn't be complacent around how we go about our business. How good England was in Australia is another question. So Australia have performed unbelievably well. And well done to them, but I think they might find things a little different here in South Africa.
If you ask Jeffrey Boycott, he said that they were absolutely miserable and that his grandmother could probably have played better than the English down under. But I wanted to ask you, Andrew, about this series, where it will be decided, and is it as simple as, South Africa's bowlers against their batters? Yeah,
I think that is perhaps a key element. I think how we cope with their bowling is as a batting lineup. Not having Jacques around, I think, is perhaps key as well. It does mean that some of the more senior players are going to have to be accountable now and say, well, we can't rely on Jacques giving us runs. When I get to 70, I've got to make sure I get a big 100 and bat for the team. So I think there's going to be a lot of application, a lot of the same stuff that the team's been doing for a while. But I really think this team, if it plays to its potential and starts well, in a 3 Test match series, you want to start the series well. Yeah. You don't want to start and have a little bit of a stutter to start with. You've got to hit the ground running and play good cricket in the first Test match, which sets the tone for the rest of the series.
And Centurion has always been a sort of happy hunting ground for South Africa. I wanted to ask you, as the convener of selectors, were you guys tempted of thinking like a guy like Kyle Abbott, who you know was man of the match there last time he played there against Pakistan, and then also a youngster like Quinton de Kock? He must have been on the fringes also when you were thinking about the team.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and I think the names you mentioned, plus guys like Buren Hendricks, there are a lot of youngsters that I think are putting their hands up. As I said earlier, this team has played good cricket in the last 18 months. It's been successful. It's world number one. I don't think the time to blood a youngster is against Australia right now. I do think there will be opportunities to look at them, but all those names, I mean, they're all fine players and they're knocking on the door. Their chance and time will come, there's no doubt. But for now, I think we need experience, we need toughness. We need to back guys that have done the job for us over the last 2 years.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful insight there into how things will pan out over the next couple of weeks, month or two. Andrew Hudson, the convener of South Africa's selectors, ahead of probably the most anticipated series in recent memory between South Africa, the world number one side, and Australia, well, the world's biggest talkers. Moving on, government has added another 1 billion rand into the National Students Financial Aid Scheme. Higher Education and Training Minister Bladen Zimandi made the announcement amid ongoing student protests at several institutions of higher learning.
These were the scenes unfolding at the universities at the start of the academic year. Students demanding to be registered despite unpaid fees. Lectures were disrupted and some students suspended. The Durban University of Technology was shut down after violent protests. Students are stranded after being forced out of residence.
I don't know where I'll sleep, but I have no choice. I have to go because really that's the rule.
We don't know where to go now because we don't have even money to return back at home. I'm from Mpumalanga, deep down in Mpumalanga.
The 1 billion cash injection could throw many a lifeline. The money has been sourced from the National Skills Fund, but only hard workers will benefit.
Students who have performed poorly in 2013 will most likely not be funded in 2014. I suppose this is something we need to get across to society, that we are funding people to progress, not to stay and become professional students.
The NSFAS 2013 shortfall was 2.6 billion rand. The 2014 budget is 9 billion. And an assurance, no student is deliberately excluded.
We don't have money that is available that is not spent. Every money that we get, we allocate it to the universities, and the universities in turn allocate it to the students.
While the minister was addressing the media, students staged a sit-in in his office demanding funding. At the Tshwane University of Technology, classes were boycotted.
We are paying tax. You are paying tax as I speak to you. Government has money to fund free education as per the NSFAS report. So we don't see why they cannot do so. We do have enough money for free education.
Further mass action is planned for next week. National Student Body, SASCO, says it will first assess the impact and allocation of the 1 billion rand before calling off protests across campuses.
Well, let's go across to a developing story now. As we speak, police are using rubber bullets to disperse protesting residents in Kubyana near Elela in Limpopo. This morning, the residents went on the rampage again, torching the home of a man in whose car a 3-year-old child died. The residents attacked the police and non-protesting residents and chased away the media from the village. Limpopo Premier Stanley Matabata has condemned acts of violence in 3 villages in that province. Michael Marenga joins us from Polokwane to give us the latest. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben, and good morning to viewers.
Michael, just give us an update on what's happening in these 3 villages. It sounds like it's a very dangerous place to be at the moment.
Yeah, it was extremely dangerous yesterday, but today it's a little bit quiet. Maybe it's because of the weather. It's bucketing, it's raining here, but the roads leading to the 2 villages, Kubyana and Elela, are still blockaded. But motorists are now able to pass through the 2 villages. there's a serious police presence in the area now. People have not started gathering as yet, but we know that around this time, around 10 o'clock, it's when they start gathering and men their way forward for the TV. But as it is now, it's still a bit quiet. But the latest we got is that shops belonging to foreigners, to Somalis, Ethiopians, and likes have been performed last night. Stuff has been taken in there, and where I'm standing, there are a few of them who are waiting for police to escort them to their shops so that they can go and salvage their remaining stuff in the form of refrigerators and other things that they can still get.
Michael, are non-protesting residents, are they also being targeted in these attacks?
I did not get that.
Are residents who are not protesting, who are peaceful, are they also being targeted?
Not necessarily. You'll understand that these villages are very vast, they are very big. So the number that is here alone, it's enough to can create chaos. Those who are onlookers are not affected. Some are watching these proceedings at the yards of their homes, so they are not affected at all. It's only the motorists that are passing through that are affected, because now they have created small toll gates of some sort where each and every motorist has to pay if they want to pass through. It has not started as yet this morning, but it's something that we are anticipating that it might continue as from 10 o'clock, provided the rain stops, because it's coming down very hard.
So, Michael, just tell us about what the residents, what the demands are, and give us the latest about the whereabouts, about these missing children.
Look, their demand is that justice must prevail. Remember, we're talking about two incidents from different villages where a 20-year-old woman was killed and mutilated. The hand is still missing. Their demand is that police must look for that hand. They must bring it so that this woman can be buried and the perpetrators should be brought to book. In the other incident, the one that sparked the violence yesterday about the 3 missing children, they want the suspect to be arrested. We saw yesterday the suspect was whisked away by police when the angry resident went to his house, torched his shop. And as for the 3 kids, the one was found dead. The other 2 were found alive. They are in good health. I was telling the family this morning, they were not even taken to the hospital. We are told that they are in a good state of health. So that's where it stands with the 3 children. As for the rest, maybe we'll find out during the course of the day if there are any other developments. Where I am now, I'm standing behind 6, if not 7, police vans. They will be heading to the villages to escort the shop owners to go and collect their stuff. That's where we're standing as it is.
And finally, Mike, I wanted to just ask you about the police presence. Has the police numbers increased? And are they at all able to police this area, or are they simply just operating in little pockets themselves?
Look, the number has increased. It increases every day. We drove through to the satellite police station that was vandalized. There are police signalers and vans that are monitoring from Relela. And on the Kuyani side, where I'm standing now, there are about 6 or 7 vehicles before me. And I see here they even brought police from Mpumalanga to come and assist. So in terms of police, they have reinforced. It's just a matter of time because they indicated to us they will start effecting arrest for people who are said to be involved in this public violence. So they're just waiting for the situation to calm down so that they can go in and do their job.
Thank you, Michael, for that update. We'll keep you updated as to how that story develops over the next day or so. Of course, residents are still up in arm after what they call justice needs to be done in the Rulela village and surrounding villages there close to Tsanin in Limpopo. But let's take a quick look at what you're talking about on social media. Of course, many people are bracing themselves for the cricket. We spoke to the National Convener of Selectors earlier, but Bandizwa says, can it be the 12th of February already so that the Aussies and Proteas can play? Anticipating some great cricket right there. Absolutely, I think the entire country is doing so. Sipho Brian says the Aussies have landed in SA for the upcoming tour and the Proteas are ready to battle the Aussies. Good luck, Proteas, says Sipho. Vince Tulified, 22 Tuli 85 says, I'm waiting patiently for the Proteas Australia cricket matches. It's a period when I wish I wouldn't be going to work. We all wish that, my friend. And then Mtoko Zizi Hlela says, not that I'm doubting our Proteas, but Australia has been playing wonderful cricket in all aspects. Just a fear thought. Fear not, my friend. Love. Paul Louis Lowe says, Cricket Australia must be looking forward to some competition come their tour of South Africa. Hashtag Proteas. Those are some of the tweets coming in. People can't wait for this cricket tour to start. Everyone's bracing themselves for it. After a short break, well, the standoff in the platinum mining sector in South Africa continues after the latest round of talks failed again. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
If you do nothing, you can expect nothing.
I'm going to vote because I'm stoked about the opportunities here.
I'm voting for my children's future.
Why? Because I love this country.
I'm
voting because I care about what happens.
Yes, of course I'm going to vote, man. I'm excited about the future.
Why? Because South Africa belongs to all of us.
IEC. I vote South Africa.
Welcome back. You're with Newsroom on SABC News. Heads of state are in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, at the 22nd ordinary session of the African that kicked off yesterday and is scheduled to take place until today. The theme of this year's event is agriculture and food security, marking the 10th anniversary of the adoption of the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Programme. In our Cape Town studio, we speak to Professor Nicholas Bigpe from the Africa Growth Institute to give us more of an insight. Good morning, Professor. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Agriculture and food security. Will those be the only key factors that will be discussed at this summit?
No, they cover a broad range. Agriculture and food security, of course, that is the most important thing. That was the main theme. But, you know, these don't happen in kind of space. Infrastructure issues, because that impacts on agriculture and food security, access to other financial funding for the agricultural programs in the continent, and many other things that actually are related to economic growth within the continent. And also, they're also looking to see the current, there are also comments by the side of the event or the current security issues that are happening in a number of African countries, including South Sudan and then the Central African Republic. And again, if you look at that again, that also impacts on agriculture. So it's a very, very broad kind of theme, but the specific one is on agriculture and food security.
Professor, we had Barack Obama in South Africa about 3-4 months ago, and he gave Africa the rubber stamp that the continent will see fantastic growth over the next decade or two. Is that the case? And how do you see the different economic zones on the continent performing?
That is actually the case. If you look at within the last maybe 20 years, okay, maybe 15 to 20 years, the continent has had one of the most phenomenal growth compared to any other parts around the world. We talk on average around 6%.
Yeah.
So that has been something that's not in dispute from economists and policymakers. I think what is now beginning to worry is just that, I mean, you can't have security, you can't have growth in an environment where there is no peace. So I think that's beginning to worry. But I think, again, when you look at the distribution, there are still a lot of African countries, regions that are doing very well. And that will continue to be the case. But of course, Africa, we normally, within the African Union, want to see the continent taking off all these kind of terrible things that happen. We are a continent of very, very large arable land. You can't compare that to anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And why are we not having enough food to feed ourselves? So, I mean, the president was right. Things are going to improve, but I think we should be doing better than what we are doing now.
I want to come back to South Africa. The repo rate went up again this week in South Africa. The outlook for the next couple of years is a little bit bleak for South Africans who look like they have to tighten their belts quite a bit. Is it a question with the rest of the continent doing so well of South Africa not really being as competitive as the rest of South Africa, as the rest of the continent, and then why?
You see, in this country, we've got a bit of a structural problem, and it's gone back several years, and it's something that governments try to tackle. Of course, it's not easy. We've got a number of issues that are very critical. The issues surrounding education, which everybody talks about that, but what does that mean? Education is not necessarily people going to university, but how we use our young talents to provide them with the experience for them to maybe start their own businesses. We don't have that. When you look at China, around 1978, and also other emerging economies that have done very well, they started within the rural areas where people were re-educated to actually be able to start their own businesses, to be able to work productively. Yeah. And then people were sent to schools to learn a profession or a trade if they didn't go to university, to come back into the community and then produce. We are not having that. And when you then get youth unemployment increasing at a way that we can control that, and the investment in education is not the type that we are getting, then we have a structural issue here. But again, the government has done well. If you look back, you and I can look back 20 years, there has been a lot of improvement. Yeah. But I think when you compare South Africa with other emerging markets, why are they doing better than us? It's because precisely of the structural issues.
What about other issues in big business, things like the monopolies that are holding South Africa back, and things like high banking costs, high cell phone costs, high data that you have to. How do these things how do they hold an economy back?
They can hold an economy back. Information is knowledge. If you don't know, provide it with the right information again, and if people hold you to hostage on that, you pay a lot. I remember I did mention that a significant number of population cannot afford a very high cost of living. So that's always an issue. Yeah. But that's not the only issue. When you look at the monopolies are there to make money, we must all remember that. And sometimes we forget that these are market institutions that are here to make money. But I think as a country and as a government, if I say government, not me included as part of the government, but as a government that actually take major decisions in this country, there must be a way that we can work with these monopolies to let most of them understand that, look, the growth that we are going to get in this continent, in this country in particular, we cannot have them without them actually look at the major issues and also addressing them. Yeah. So it's something that I think that is happening over the last 5 years. I think it's happening that the big organizations are beginning to realize that they are recruiting people at a younger age and then trying to maintain and try and keep them. But I think it's still a long way to go.
Thank you very much for that contribution today, Professor Nicholas Bichter, live from Cape Town. Of course, he's with the Africa Growth Institute, giving us an insight into the 22nd session of the African Union, and then also a quick question or two about South Africa's outlook and why we are not as competitive as we should be. Moving on, Zimbabwe's central bank has pushed back by 6 years its June deadline for banks to raise a minimum capital of $100 million, up from $25 million. This, they say, will relieve pressure on the undercapitalized sector. In 2012, the Reserve Bank gave Commercial Bank until June this year to increase capital, but acting central bank governor Charity Dliwayo said in a monetary policy statement the decline had been moved to 2020 June. The statement also spells out plans to add 4 more currencies to the basket of multiple currencies being traded in that country, and bringing that to 9 now. Now, SABC correspondent Shinga Nyoka joins us on the line from Harare in Zimbabwe this morning. Good morning, Shinga.
Good morning to you, Eben.
Just paint the picture quickly for us, Shinga. What does this latest move mean for the economy of Zimbabwe?
The latest move in terms of the addition of the currency?
Yes.
Well, from what we understand, the reason behind this particular move is that there was increased investment and trade ties with these 4 Asian countries, including China, Japan, India, and Australia. And this really has been welcomed by many of the exporters and traders who say that for the last 3 or 4 years, they've been subject to the movements and unpredictable movements of the currencies that they were using, including the Botswana pula, the euro, the United States dollar, as well as the rand. You'll know that there's been a lot of movement with those particular currencies. And so really there wasn't a predictability when they were planning. There's been a lot of trade with China, and as well as a lot of trade with Japan, as you can imagine. And so this really has been a welcome move in the sense that now they'll be able to trade in those specific currencies that they have investment ties with.
Shinga, I wanted to ask you about salaries also. There seems to be some conjecture around salaries of government workers in that country. Do you have any update on that, maybe?
Yes, Eben, that really has been the story of the last week. There's been expositions, press reports about exorbitant salaries paid to government officials. The latest was the townhouse. The town clerk was suspended yesterday for failing to provide a salary schedule, where he's reported to be earning $37,000 a month. That's 270,000 rand, which, as you can imagine, hasn't gone down well in such an impoverished country, and where a lot of the social services are non-existent. And this really comes a week after one of the public service bosses was fired over earning up to allegedly earning about $500,000 a month. That's 5 million rand. And this is a medical society which is used by civil servants, and many of these bills had not been paid, and so many of the civil servants weren't able to access some of those services. Apparently, we said that their debts of up to 38 million. And this comes a month after the ZBC boss, the state broadcaster boss, was suspended for earning about $40,000 a month when workers went without months for salaries. And so really that has shone a spotlight on the kind of rot that exists in the public service, and it really has Zimbabweans talking about government's culpability in this sense even.
And tell us about the response of the ordinary people, the man in the street. How does this affect their lives, and what is their reaction to this?
Well, there's been a lot of outrage, as you can imagine. Many of these salaries, even though they're public salaries, they had never really been talked about. They'd never really been exposed. People were unaware that despite the fact that many of the workers are earning as little as $200 or $300, or as the state broadcaster is concerned, they went with 7 months without their full pay. People really weren't aware that these bosses were earning so much money, and it really boils down to the fact that many people believe that government really hasn't been doing its job in terms of trying to control the state enterprise, and that these people essentially had free reign over these salaries, which obviously has an impact on the economy even.
Thank you very much, Shinga, for that update from Zimbabwe. That's our Zimbabwean correspondent, Shinga Nyoka, giving us an update. This is after the central bank in that country pushed back the deadline by another 6 years to recapitalize the banks there. But let's take a quick look at what you're saying and thinking on social media. Don't forget, Newsroom is being streamed live on YouTube as we speak, so you can watch it in the office or on your travels all around the world. Leanne Mayring says, I've decided that Friday in Josie is cancelled. Let's all go back to bed. I agree. The weather is terrible. Peter Maria says, nice rain today. Good start for Johannesburg, South Africa. Traffic is a mess. Yes, it was. The roads were relatively flooded. Fred says, Gauteng friends, avoid four-ways at all costs. Rain has shut down traffic. If you have it, link or Skype to work. Good man. Natasha Tabani says, waking up to an incredible weather. Yes, it has been rather wet in Johannesburg today. And Thomas says, the rain is falling. We are blessed today in Gauteng. Some people don't think so, Thomas. Kirsty Dutoy says, rain, 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 oh glorious rain. Not everybody thinks it's so glorious because the roads are flooded, the traffic's a mess, and in the big city, people just not that courteous on the roads. Send your contributions at SABC Newsroom. That's where we live on Twitter, and of course sabc.co.za/news. That's where you find all the updates from all around, all the time. Would you pack up your life for a mission to Mars without the hope of ever returning back to this planet? Well, we'll find out all about that after a short break. Don't go away. That's going to be interesting. Newsroom on SABC News.
Good evening and welcome to Kaleidoscope, the show that brings you the very best of Africa to the world. Just a few kilometers away from the hustle and bustle of the city is an animal sanctuary known as the Lion Park. Our great team went to go check out and see if the lion is still singing tonight.
Among all of the cat's family, cheetahs are the most easiest to train or to tame.
A youth leader in South Africa said if white people don't like it, that the youth are going to lead South Africa, they can adapt or fly. And I said, thank you for the title. So again, I thank politicians for my title.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back, you're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a quick look at our top stories. Limpopo Premier Stanley Matabata has condemned acts of violence in 3 villages in the province. Community members went on the rampage, burning property and blockading roads earlier this week. It follows the discovery of 3 bodies in the Rilela, Kubyane and Katama villages. Another strike is looming in the mining sector. This time trade union NUMSA is planning to serve a 48-hour notice to down tools at Anglo-American Platinum. It comes as members of trade union AMCU reject the employer's latest offer of a 9% salary increase. In football, Nigeria and Zimbabwe, who were the favourites to play in the final of the African Nations Champions, will now fight it out for 3rd and 4th place tomorrow in Cape Town. They lost out on a place in the final to Libya and Ghana, who themselves insist they remain the underdogs for the final. Now, the strike in the platinum sector is set to continue after mine workers at Anglo Platinum in Rustenburg rejected the latest 9% offer from platinum mining companies Amplats, Implats and Lonmin. The offer was for the next 3 years. Trade union AMCU down tools last Thursday at the world's 3 largest platinum producers, demanding a 12,500 Rand entry-level salary per month. From Rustenburg, we are joined by Atlenda Mate. Good morning, Atlenda. Can you hear us?
Yes, good morning, Eben.
So far, the 3-day negotiations seems to have failed. Why are the workers rejecting the latest offer, or are they not even prepared to negotiate?
Well, speaking to workers yesterday, many of them walked away with disappointment and anger, saying that the 9% offer is not close to the 12,500 demand in wage increase they're demanding. You would understand the offer between 7.5 and 9% for workers will be paid over a period of 3 years. So workers say even if they add together all those figures in those 3 years, workers say it's still very far from the 12,500 rand they are demanding. Workers are also saying in terms of monetary value, it's an increase of between 600 rand and just over 700 rand per month, which they say is too little for them.
Atlanta, do the workers understand the thing about sustainability and that you can't just double your salary bill overnight? Do they understand that that would be almost nearly impossible for any business?
Well, I don't think so. They don't understand. They are of the view that the employer has money and that the employer must make a plan to pay them the 12,500 rand.
And just tell us about the offer that's on the table at the moment. What are management saying? Are they prepared to negotiate any further, or is this where they're going to stop?
Well, talking about the offer differs from one mine to the other, and it also differs from one level to the next level. For instance, there are those that work on the surface, there are those that work underground, and there are rock drill operators. So surface workers' gross payment ranges from between 7,000 and 8,600 at the 3 platinum mines. Underground gross payment ranges from between 8,600 and 9,500 at the 3 mines.
Yeah.
And the rock drill operators, which are the highest paid, range between 11,000 and 12,000 at the 3 mines. Speaking to workers, they say they will not back down on their demands. Even if it takes them months to reach the 12,500 rand, they will not return to work. They will continue to strike, despite the no work, no play rule applying.
Atlanta Mate down in Mahikeng, thank you for that contribution, giving us the latest on the strife, really, that's beset the platinum mining sector here in South Africa. Workers and management seem to be poles apart as to the expectation, and it seems as if this could be another protracted strike. Well, we've closed today. Well, earlier in the week, we had the inspirational Afronaut Mandla Maseko on our show, who's going into space next year. Today, we look at the Mars One mission, an even more ambitious, daring initiative to put humankind on the red planet. The mission was founded in 2011 by 2 Dutch entrepreneurs. The first trip to Mars is only planned for 2024. 200,000 people applied initially, from which just more than 1,000 have been shortlisted to take part in the initiative. Now, our producer, Anton Meyer, has put together a timeline on this. But before I go there, Anton, just tell us, these people, and I know you've got a gentleman with you, these people that are going, are they aware that they're never coming back to planet Earth?
Well, it's called Mars One for a reason. It's a one-way trip to Mars. They'll never come back, so I'm sure they're aware.
I understood you to put together a timeline for us, yes, as to how things will pan out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, like you said, Eben, the mission was founded in 2011 by Bas Lansdorp and Arno Wilders from Holland. A lot of planning went into the whole mission as to where they will find the funding, what spaceships to use, etc. We have a timeline there up on the screen for you. Last year, April, they opened up online applications, and you had to send in a motivational video explaining why you are the perfect candidate. There will be 2 more selection rounds like this. At the end of it's around 6 teams of 4 individuals are selected for training. And then next year, these teams will enter full-time training in preparation for a 2024 launch. And then between next year and 2024, they will send up communications satellites, rovers, and living quarters. The rovers will also assist in setting up the outpost where the humans will live. And then in 2024, they will send up the first group. Now, South Africa is also represented in the pool of 1,000. 30 of our fellow citizens made it through to the shortlist. Today, with us in studio, we are joined by one of the prospective Martians, Kobus Vermeulen. Good morning, Kobus.
Good morning.
I'm going to start with the obvious question first. Why did you decide to apply for this Mars One mission?
Well, for me, this is an excellent opportunity to be part of something that's so much bigger than yourself. and to really inspire people. But also, I've been fascinated with space and Mars since I was a little boy. And of course, South Africa has no astronaut program or anything like that that you can apply to. So when this came along, it just seemed like a natural thing to do.
Yeah, Eben said earlier, it's a one-way trip to Mars. You're never going to see your friends and family again. What does your mother think about this trip?
Well, my mother quite obviously thinks I'm nuts. My friends and family, the rest of my friends and family are a bit more understanding. Some of them want to go along and think it's a really good idea.
I'm glad to get some support from your friends. There has been a variety of criticism about the whole Mars One mission. Most recent, German astronaut Ulrich Walter, he said, or he estimates that the chance of you reaching Mars is only 30%, and then when you're on the planet, chances of surviving are at less than 20%. What do you think of this critique, and what do you have to say to those that are skeptic about the project?
Well, I mean, with all respect to Mr. Walters, he's an astronaut, not an astro engineer. And at the end of the day, big companies like Lockheed Martin and Surrey Satellite Technology are behind this, and they certainly think it's possible. NASA themselves in the late 80s released a so-called 90-day report in which they proposed going to Mars with then existing technology. So this certainly isn't something that's beyond our reach, and we definitely will be able to live on Mars. There are valid critiques of this mission, but those I don't think are them.
Now, it's a 401 million kilometer trip to Mars. And of course, you're there alone with a few other people on the planet. Will there be any way for you to communicate with people back on Earth?
Certainly. The idea is to send a satellite in 2018 to orbit Mars itself. And then they also want to send another satellite to trail the Earth, making 24/7 communications between Earth and Mars possible. So at the end of the day, you'll be able to email your friends and family, leave video messages, WhatsApp. You'll even be able to request the newest Springbok game to be uploaded to your favorite TV shows.
So you can at least watch rugby there up
sure.
on Mars. And then I'm sure you have some fears of living on Mars. It's not just fun and games. It's a whole project. It's in the name of science. But surely you must have some fears.
No, naturally, I mean, it's a very big sacrifice, but with anything worth doing, there will be big sacrifices. In terms of the individual, there's very little advantage to going to live on Mars in terms of, if you compare it to Earth, except maybe that you wouldn't be stuck in 2-hour traffic jams on the way to the studio or have to
like
pay
this morning,
yeah. But in terms of humankind, there are so many great advantages. You get to refocus people on space and science. You get to invent new technologies in the process that might be able to help humanity in the future. And of course, we're vulnerable here on Earth. We're sitting on a planet with diminishing resources. An asteroid could come and wipe us out. We're sort of hedging our bets by expanding into the solar system.
Okay, just lastly, quickly, I have doubts about the funding methods. They're going to turn it into a TV reality show. What do you think about this?
Well, the reality aspect, I think, is overplayed. It won't be like Big Brother. This will be more a documentary style. And most of the money will, in fact, come from selling the rights to the TV program. So I think the funding definitely can work. If you compare it to the Olympics, for example, the Olympics makes more in a 5-year period than the entire cost of this mission. So it definitely is possible. The thing is just, are these TV studios risk-averse, or will they support this effort?
Kobus, I want to thank you very much for coming in. Eben, you can take over.
Yeah, Kobus, I think you're a very brave man, to be honest. I think you're a very brave man. I wish you all the best. Thanks, I kind of like it down here, so I'll stay here and I'll be watching TV, what you guys are doing up there. Thanks. Fantastic, you're a brave man. Anton, TV debut for Anton today. Well done, mate.
Thanks, Kobus.
Are we going to take a look at social media? No, we're going to say goodbye. We're saying goodbye? We're saying goodbye. Newsroom, of course, broadcast to you live every morning between 9 and 10 a.m. On SABC News Channel 404 on DSTV, of course, live from Johannesburg in Auckland Park. We also see rebroadcast at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and then 5 o'clock the next morning. If you've missed it, we also stream live on YouTube throughout the day, every day. If you miss it, you can always watch a recording of the show. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.
A warm welcome to the first 2014 edition of the Art Bulletin. I'm Dumisi Dumedi and compliments of the new season to you. Award-winning director and reigning Standard Bank Young Artist of the Year, Greg Harmon, has kicked off the year with a fun, witty and heartwarming show at the Auto and General Theatre on the Square. 6 dance lessons in 6 weeks is currently on until the first week of February.
The audience for this play is really anyone who has or hasn't experienced